Okay, so my tab is pulled from an article that I found a little while ago. It's an article from the New Jersey Digest written by Peter Candia, and it is titled, How the Italian Mob Changed Pizza Forever.
Okay.
Okay.
Pizza? Okay.
Pizza.
Okay.
That was my main interest in this more than the mob part of it was.
I'm hungry.
Yes.
I also love the mob.
Did you eat breakfast today?
No.
No. Did you eat dinner last night? That's why?
No.
Yeah, of course not. I'm going to have pizza tonight. I'm very excited.
Okay.
Anyway, so the subheading is, today the most popular cheese used for pizza across New York and New Jersey is Grande Cheese, a low moisture mozzarella that has impeccable melting capabilities and a distinct cheesy flavor. The cheese, based out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, is considered by many pizza enthusiasts to be the gold standard of pizza cheese.
That's
and
Wisconsin.
while it's nice, yeah, cheese. I heard they make cheese there. Apparently,
they make a lot. Yeah.
Have you seen those cheese hats?
Yeah, my parents lived there for a little bit.
Oh, they did?
So I would go quote unquote home to visit them for Christmas in a place I'd never lived, and it was just cheese and brats.
That sounds awesome, actually.
It was fine.
It was fine. Okay.
Did
you ever have a cheese hat?
Yeah, no, my brother did.
Your
I think.
Did? Does he still wear it?
They were no, oh, maybe by himself alone. Cheese hat.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a cool cheese hat. I mean, it's not a very practical thing to wear necessarily. I don't know if it like blocks out the sun, but it looks cool.
It's not UV resistant.
It's not UV resistant, exactly. Anyway, while it's nice to assume that Grande's rise to fame was strictly due to its high quality, the actual story of how Grande became to be the apex of pizza cheese is much more cynical.
I'm here for it. I need some negativity in with my cheese.
Yes, too many stories of cheese positivity. It's toxic cheese positivity.
I need to start hating it.
Yes. So a little bit of backstory about pizza. A little bit of backstory about pizza. Pizza's
What's
this
pizza?
thing with bread and tomato sauce and cheese.
Never heard of her.
I personally, I've been into making pizza for quite a while. I don't just love pizza. I put my money where my mouth is, and I make a pizza. Yeah.
You make pizza? You have like a pizza oven?
I make pizza.
Stuff?
I got like a pizza oven. I used to have, my wife Sarah had bought me this uni, which is like a wood fire. It's like a portable like wood pellet outdoor fire oven. I do live in an apartment. It was really difficult with all the smoke inside the house. So we had to stop using it.
Yeah.
Calling
the police.
But I've had to adjust based on, apartment living because I'm a millennial and I'll never own a house or have a yard. Never. But I got, I got pizza stones. I got the pizza paddle. Wow. I got the whole thing. Yeah, I get real fancy with it. I like to do my...
Was that your midlife crisis?
You would think so, right? No, I'm not into IPA or smoking brisket or anything, but I'm into making pizza. That's the cool new thing.
That is so wholesome.
Yes, right. No, I started making pizza a while ago. I was like in college when I started doing it.
I had no idea.
Yeah, my dad used to make pizza when I was growing up. It was one of the things that we had like this weekly tradition on Thursdays where we'd come home from work and just like throw together a couple of doughs and we would sit and eat them. And I think I would watch like The Simpsons. It was like the best. It was like this very cherished childhood memory.
That's beautiful.
It was great, right?
I want to do that right now with you.
Yeah, we should. Sorry, podcast over. We're going to go make all of pizza remotely.
We're going to go eat pizza and watch The Simpsons.
But yes, I used to help him, quote unquote, help because I was a kid. So, which is mostly just me eating all the Lindsay olives out of the can directly and not having enough to actually go on the pizza. But then I went to college and I was like, I could probably figure this out. So I figured it out. I asked him how to do it and I got much, much better at it. And then I sort of started to get into like the little hyper different small changes you can make to make pizza good. It's really simple, but it's also deceptively simple. It's like sometimes it ends up being a lot more complicated based on like these little tiny things you can change. It's like a lot of chemistry and baking and stuff like that. Anyway, it's like a fun thing to kind of become obsessed with. And you, unlike IPA or brewing, it's something that will connect people and bring them over because it's delicious and it doesn't taste like ass.
Like piss and bread, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so that was the reason why I actually thought this article was interesting, because I was interested in the low moisture element of it. So a lot of the cheese that you end up getting at the store, I mean, you can find whole milk low moisture, but a lot of the cheese you end up getting at the grocery store ends up being like a skim milk low moisture. But everybody is always trying to make like a New York style pizza, and the cheese that they use in New York style specifically, that's very prevalent, that's very famous, is the whole milk, low moisture mozzarella. So,
Specific.
specifically, yeah. So there's different kinds of cheese you can use, obviously, and there's different cheese blends, but the mozzarella that is whole milk and low moisture ends up being much better, and it gives you that sort of cartoony, stretchy,
Goofy movie.
pull. Yes, exactly, goofy movie,
Yeah.
like the long
Best part of the
pull.
movie.
Exactly, the pull is what they called it. Like that kind of cheese is the low moisture, whole milk mozzarella. You can also use fresh mozzarella, which is the balls that come in the water, and then you sort of put it on. But yes.
Sorry.
You're so
sorry. I
what
laughed
did you
at
say?
the word balls.
You're like, oh, I'm dude coded, is what you said.
I'm husband coded.
Husband coded. You're very husband. Hannah,
said
be appropriate.
You said balls.
Get your mind out of the gutter. You can use fresh mozzarella. It's possible. A lot of times you put it if you're using like a higher heat oven, like a wood fire oven or something like that. But otherwise, if you just put it into a regular oven, it ends up being really soggy, and it sort of like soaks through the bread, and it doesn't like crisp up and cook as well. So low moisture is the way to go. So this is a story that starts a long time ago.
I want this to be a movie.
Yeah, right. It starts with a young man you may or may not have heard of. His name was Al Capone. Are you familiar with his work?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
he had a vast amount of work. Vast?
Yes.
Is that the word?
Varied. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about the word balls. Go on.
Please don't open tabs about balls while we're doing this.
Can't promise.
Resist the urge. So Al Capone, very famous bootlegger, mobster, killed a lot of people, got a lot of booze to a lot of people after the 18th Amendment passed. Of course, the 18th Amendment prohibited the sale, manufacture, and transportation of alcohol during the United States unsuccessful. Yes, the Prohibition era, about 1920 to 1933. Al Capone was, of course, he's like the top dog. He's the guy that like really made it happen. He was rich beyond belief. Everybody wanted booze. It's also still one of these things. It's like, it's weird that it even happened, that prohibition was a thing. It led to so much corruption and so much crime.
It led to like, it was so long. It lasted so long too.
Yeah.
It was like
13 years. It's a crazy amount of time.
Yeah.
It's a long amount of time. So Al Capone, of course, ruled with an iron fist. He got into all kinds of things as a result of that. He wasn't nice. He was a bit rough around the edges, but not like the good kind rough around the edges. He's kind of a bad dude. Yeah. Killed a lot of people. But of course, that comes with illegal transport of alcohol and bootlegging. There's gambling. There's, sex work and prostitution. There's, he made a lot of money, but he also paid off a lot of money because he was just bribing left and right to make sure that, his business operations were able to stay in place.
Right.
Now, towards the end of his reign, as most businessmen do, he was like, I was really good at this one thing. Maybe I can go into another business and also be a genius at this.
Oh, yep. That always works.
That works. We're currently in we're in the heyday of that happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. We love it. Funny enough, Al Capone's like, I'm in the business of people drinking stuff. I wonder if there's anything else like that. So he looks around and he's like, I noticed people have been drinking a lot of this milk stuff I keep hearing about.
Oh, milk. Al.
He's like,
the milk racket?
The milk racket. Yeah, he's like, there's this milk racket going on. A lot of people are drinking 2, sometimes 3 glasses of milk a day. You got to have these guys deliver the milk. Of course, this is the 1920s and 30s. There's not a lot of, there's like ice boxes, but you don't have like your regular modern refrigerators.
Right.
So milk's like a daily thing. And there's already a sort of infrastructure placed for it. So he just gets this idea and he's like, I wonder if I can get into this. And he realizes that the milk business in Chicago is actually kind of insane. It's kind of its own racket. It's a legitimate business, quote unquote. Yeah. Apparently it's all like, it's controlled by unions. I mean, this is a very classic like Chicago thing where there's like a lot of, there's unions and there's across the mob and all this stuff. And Al Capone's just sort of like, well, the hell with this. I'm going to go find a dairy farm somewhere else. I'm going to outsource. Basically, he's like,
Just the source.
he's like a lot of these businesses now that like started in the late 90s where they're just like, I'm going to go outside the States to get and start importing stuff. He starts getting into the import export business of milk, but across state lines, not like internationally.
I just keep thinking of like how gross it would smell.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Milk.
I mean, I think the milk is, I mean, at that point, yeah, I'm sure it's like even more crazy. It's not being processed to the point that it is now.
Yeah.
I don't even drink milk, honestly. I'm
neither.
lactose intolerant. I can't do it.
So am I.
Funny enough. And yet I still love pizza because that's how
Yeah.
lactose intolerant people are. We all put ourselves through pain because why else?
Yep. It's all worth it.
It's all worth it. So of course he goes and he finds this dairy business in Wisconsin, and he buys a place called Meadowmore Dairies Incorporated. And he starts this new racket and he starts to undercut the whole milk game. Because basically he's like, well, if I go to Wisconsin, it's a lot cheaper. And then I can bring it into Chicago and undercut all the whatever the local Chicago milk lobby was. The local Chicago milk business was. And of course he's a gangster, so he's not doing it through like the nicest means.
It's milk.
It's
I just
milk,
love that
sister.
this is milk. It's like, I can't. I just keep picturing Al Capone like drinking milk, and it just
He's got a milk mustache the entire time. He's showing up to meetings. It's really awkward. Yeah, got milk. That should have been the campaign in the 90s. They should have had Al Capone with it. Yeah, with a gun. Got milk.
Got some.
So he basically takes it over, right, in Chicago. He starts and throughout the Midwest, he's like, this is now my racket is milk, in addition to all the other stuff. So he's sort of transferred this set of skills that he has. And of course, his other mobster friends are like, what do you got going on there in Wisconsin? We want in on this. And they're like, yeah, come on over. That's cool.
They want the milk too?
They want the milk too, or just they want this business. They get into this idea of like, well, if we just go outside of this place where it's expensive and create a distribution network where we can bring it in, we can undercut everybody, which is what mobsters do. Definitely not what giant companies and international corporations do. They don't do that ever.
It ended. It ended with Capone.
That ended. We don't do that in the year 2023 or 2024, I should say, by the time this gets released.
Weird.
Yeah, right. And so he basically starts bringing in his friends. There's this other guy. His name's Ross Prio. He's another kind of, mobster that's in the area. He goes and he gets involved in the Grande Cheese Company. Which is
a different cheese company.
So Grande Cheese. So Al Capone was in the dairy company. Cheese processing is like a different thing. So they start working hand in hand. They start working together. And by the way, I should say that these are not companies that were started by these people, by the gangsters. These are companies that existed. These are companies that like were already making good products. The mob decided to come in and be like, okay, well, we're going to use this to our benefit.
Wow. I mean,
so on some level. Yeah, you have all these people who are like, I just wanted to make cheese, and the next thing you know, I'm getting strong-armed. It is sort of unfortunate in that sense, but they continue to make good products. And I'm not quite sure exactly. So there's not like a clear thread here in terms of like what the timeline is, but around the early 1930s, Al Capone gets arrested. He famously goes to Alcatraz. Ross Prio's running Grande Cheese. There's different people it's passed in hands from one to one. Eventually, a very famous mobster, Joe Bonanno Sr., took over Grande Cheese. And he essentially takes it to this next level. And he starts what they call the agro mafia. Have you heard of this term before?
No.
Which I assumed all mafia is very agro, but no, it's specifically in reference to agricultural mafia.
Agricultural mafia. I love that so much. Okay.
Agro mafia. So they control the means of like olive oil, cheese, distribution, stuff like that. So it's specifically having to do with like, products, food, and agricultural products. It's not just like, we're going to break your legs if you don't do this. It's like
drink our olive oil.
Right. So Bonanno essentially starts this process where, again, exactly. So the way you sort of see it in like a typical movie is, they'll come in, the mob comes in, and they're just like, you got to pay us for protection, otherwise we'll break your legs, and you got to give us like $2,000 a week or whatever. And then the owners are like scared and they have to pay out, and it's terrible. They start like this different trend that ends up being like hugely successful. And the way they do it is like, and he's also starting something. Bonanno starting a distribution network with people back east. So specifically, like within New York and New Jersey, because he's
Pizza
got ties
country.
there. Pizza country. So he's got like these cheeses. He's got these people back east in New York and New Jersey. He's just like, I wonder if we can make something happen here. But they don't go in and offer to break. They don't go in and threaten to break the legs of these people. They go into, a pizzeria. Let's just say it's owned by Ray. Ray is what every pizzeria apparently is called back in New York. So, they go
There's
to
like 50 Rays. Yeah.
there's like 50 Rays. So they go into Rays. It's like a guy named, Johnny goes in and he's just like, hey, can I get a slice of your pepperoni pie? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And Ray, like, he heats him up like a nice, delicious slice of pepperoni. Johnny's sitting there eating it. And he's just like, man, this is some incredibly delicious pizza. And he's like, oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And he's like, let me ask you, what kind of cheese do you use on this? And he's like, oh, it's funny you should ask. I have this distributor. He's out in Newark. He's this guy named Billy Bob. He's like one of my great friends. I've known him forever. What?
He's ancient.
He's ancient. Billy Bob Thornton was around back then. He's in the crib distributing cheese. So he says, I got this guy. I got this friend, Billy Bob. I love him. We've been doing business together for 20 years. He was at my kid's christening. Our wives talk all the time. It's fantastic. He's been sending me this cheese. He's great. And then the guy Johnny, the mobster, is just like, oh, that's wonderful. I think it's really great that you guys have such a tight community. I love, because that's really all pizza's about, right? It's about getting people together to have a slice together, putting aside our differences and sharing. That's beautiful, man. He says, thanks, man. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. It's really great. And he says, look, I'll tell you what. I represent this company. It's called Grande Cheese. We're based out of Wisconsin. Yeah, he says, we're kind of the new guys on the block. We've been doing really great work out in Wisconsin and out in Chicago and the Midwest. People really love us. We thought, we love New York. We got a lot of roots out here. Maybe people out here will be interested. And he says, listen, I don't want to impose. I don't want to ruin whatever relationship you have because God bless you. That's beautiful. I think relationships are really important with Billy Bob and his cheese distribution network.
The cheese.
He says, I don't want to ruin that. Man. He says, but sometimes life has this way of getting crazy and you don't expect it. Different things can happen. You don't know. Just the other day, 6 months ago, my uncle, he was 46 years old. He's married. He's got 3 kids. All of a sudden, bam, dies. Heart attack. Massive heart attack. All of a sudden, his wife left with 3 kids. She doesn't have a breadwinner.
The heart attack. I was laughing, but not at the heart attack. Go on.
He says, he dies. He doesn't have a backup plan. All of a sudden, his wife's left with 3 kids. She doesn't have a backup plan. She can't make any money. What are you supposed to do? They didn't plan ahead. It's tragic. I mean, honestly, we can't say we didn't see it coming because he was really unhealthy. He ate a lot. He drank a lot. He smoked a lot of cigars.
Through the mud. He was awful.
God rest his soul. He was a great guy, but he didn't do a great job of taking care of himself. I don't want to see that happen to you. I want you and this delicious pizza to always have a backup plan just in case. He says, okay. He says, tell you what, just take my business card, put it in a drawer. You don't ever have to call me. God willing, it'll never happen. You'll never have to call me. Nothing will ever go wrong. And you're going to have like a successful business to the end of your days. I wish you the best. But just in case, you never know, have this as a backup plan because God forbid you should be left without some sort of delicious cheese. And he's like, I really appreciate that, It's really sweet of you. It's really nice. And he says, yeah, okay, anyway, thanks again for the slice. I'll catch you later. God bless. And he goes, and the guy's like, that was a really nice cheese distributor. I'm going to hold on to this card because he's a good guy, and he really liked the pizza. Right? Ray goes about his week. Later that week, the mayor comes in, and he's having a slice. The mayor of his town. He's like, this is awesome. I love this food. I love this pizza. I tell you what, my wife's been on my case. I'm turning 57 next week. She wants me to throw some sort of party. And I don't like any of these fancy, big places. I want to do something more local, low key in the neighborhood. Man of the people. And he's like, I'd really like to just have something here. And he's like, are you serious? Mr. Mayor, that would be an honor. We'd love to host you here for your 57th birthday. And he says, yeah, it's no big deal. Don't worry, don't mention. I'm going to invite a couple of other famous or important people in the community. We're going to be here. We just want to keep it low key. You don't need to fuss over us. Nothing crazy. And he's like, yeah, no problem. He's really excited.
I'm really invested in this story. Did any of this like did this happen?
I mean, I can't prove that it didn't happen.
I'm going to choose to believe this is word for word.
Yes. And
Anyways,
he says,
the mayor
all right,
wants to, okay.
The mayor wants to have his 57th birthday party there next week. It's great. He's loving it. This guy, Ray, he's like, man, I can't wait to call Billy Bob on Friday, because Friday is when he calls and he makes his
Billy
calls
Bob,
for the next week.
Yeah.
The cheesemonger. Yeah. He says Friday's the day that he makes calls for the following week to see how many orders he needs. And he says, I can't wait to tell him. He loves it. We love our weekly catch up. Picks up the phone Friday morning, calls Billy Bob at the factory. No answer. Just keeps ringing.
Oh, no.
He's like, that's weird. That never happens. He gives it like 10 minutes. He goes, washes his hand, checks up on the inventory, comes back 10 minutes later, calls it again. No answer. He's like, oh no, what's going on?
Do it.
So he decides to call Billy Bob at his house. Thankfully, it's okay. He's not dead. Billy Bob picks up the phone.
Okay. All right.
Picks up the phone.
I was getting attached to him.
Yeah. Don't worry, he goes on to have an illustrious acting career. It's fine.
He marries Angelina Jolie.
He has a great life.
Yeah.
He calls up Billy Bob. Billy Bob picks up the phone. He's like, hey, Billy Bob, what happened? I called the factory a couple times. You didn't pick up. And he goes, I'm ruined. This is what happened. And he says, I don't know. There was a fire at the factory. I can't make my cheese. He says, what do you mean there was a fire at the factory? He says, I don't know. The fireman said it was an electrical fire, but I didn't leave anything unplugged. I don't know why it happened. He says, oh my God, Billy Bob, that's terrible. I'm so sorry. He consoles him. And in the back of his mind, he's like, oh crap. The mayor's coming next week. What am I going to do? I'm out of cheese. So whatever, he consoles, Billy Bob cries on the phone and he hangs up and he's like, what am I going to do? And then he remembers he's got this business card from his friend Johnny that just came in earlier that week. And he says, I got to call Johnny and see if he can make it happen. He calls up Johnny. He says, listen, Johnny, I know you were just here a couple of days ago. God forbid, I need cheese next week. The mayor's coming. It's going to be a big deal, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how long it's going to take Billy Bob.
Okay.
All right, I'll get to the point. So Billy Bob.
No, I love this. I'm here for it.
So Johnny says, don't worry. I actually, funny enough as it is, funny mention it, I ended up making a couple of other contacts in the neighborhood. I'm going to be delivering a shipment of cheese next week. I got you. Don't worry. I'll bring you 30 pounds of the low moisture, whole milk, fresh mozzarella. You'll be fine. He says, oh, thank you. And he hangs up the phone. And then he starts thinking to himself, he's like, man, what are the odds that Billy Bob's factory would burn down the same week that this guy showed up and said, what if something should go? And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, crap.
And by then,
now he's in bed with the mob.
Yeah.
So this is the process that they did.
A classic American story.
Classic American tale of something that would happen. And now, of course, this goes on for years. This becomes a whole network where now all of a sudden the mob is connected to all these different pizzerias, and they have these distribution networks. They use these distribution networks to drive trucks around and distribute whatever, cocaine, anything illegal. This escalates
like full-on drug,
full-on drugs. Yeah. This escalates. They're still making pizza, because remember, a lot of these places are just pizzerias that are just doing their thing.
Wild. Okay.
Yeah. It's their thing. They're already doing pizzas. Like, these people are just sort of like strong-armed into it. It's really unfortunate. Yeah. So this is what happens. It gets crazier and crazier. Eventually, this becomes so successful that the Italian mafia, like literally the mafia back in Italy, like in Sicily, starts processing heroin that came in through Turkey. So they take, I think, like whatever, opium or whatever. It comes in through Turkey. They process it in Spain. And then through different flights, like, through Brazil and stuff, they bring it into the Midwest. Into Chicago, and they're bringing heroin into the States. So they have this crazy operation where they're essentially like bringing A-grade heroin from international stores and then distributing it through this pizza network.
Only the best
of different pizzerias
with only the best mozzarella.
Top quality mozzarella heroin. And the FBI gets word of this.
Oh yeah.
The New York district attorneys get word of this. This becomes a thing. So they start these sting operations where they're following them. They know that the mob bosses are up to it. This leads to a very famous trial in 1987.
Oh, so they caught them.
they caught them. So eventually, like whatever, through the RICO
Crazy,
Act and all this stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. So like they're
It's
following, they're
pizza.
tailing, they're gathering all these different they're wiretapping people and sort of putting a case together. And this case ends up being referred to as the Pizza Connection throughout the media. It's the Pizza Connection. It's this big trial.
It's a
No, it's
Sesame
not
Street
Kermit the
song.
Frog singing. Yeah, right.
Dang.
The Pizza Connection. The
Good Kermit.
mobsters, the heroine, and me.
He's in bed with the mob. They all are.
They all are. And so
All the Muppets.
it becomes this huge story. It's crazy. All, like I said, the Italian authority is involved in it. The FBI is involved in it. The district attorney and the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York was led. Okay, so it was all involved in it. So guess who at this time was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York and who led this case? He's a very famous attorney.
I don't know. The guy who did the OJ case.
No. It was not Johnny Cochran. That's the only attorney you know.
Okay. It's the only one I know. Okay, wait, who?
It's our sweaty king, the recently bankrupted Mr. Four
Rudy?
Seasons himself, Rudolph William Giuliani.
No way.
He becomes the face of this case in the media.
What?
Yep. 1987,
Rudy
the Pizza
Giuliani.
Connection, if you look it up. Rudy Giuliani.
Wow.
Sweating everywhere with his hair dye. Actually, this is before all of his hair dye is sweating everywhere. Yeah. This becomes the case that all over the pizza. This is the case that makes him like super famous. And of course from there, all because of the mob and then putting, I mean, that's the irony of it. Yeah. That's a whole other story about where that guy's career went.
Part of this, I think. Yeah. This is my favorite part of this whole story. Okay, so Giuliani
essentially leads this case, or at least is sort of the face of it within the media. Of course, there's all these other people that are involved in it. And they put away like a dozen mobsters. And it sort of ends the idea of like what we know about the Italian mafia, like as it's sort of historically been known in the States. However, Grande Cheese is essentially like, since then, it's like, it's disconnected from that. They're still going. So Grande Cheese is still a very like well-respected, well-loved. It's kind of still the standard. Like within New York, they're like, oh no, Grande is the best cheese. It's the most stringy and cheesy. It's got the best pull. Like, you have to remember, again, the people who were making these, the artisans who were part of these companies were just sort of like, they got pushed out and taken over by the mob. But they're still like, you know what? We're still making good cheese. So it's really funny because essentially like all this is a long way of saying that like the reason why we all have low moisture, stretchy cheese, delicious mozzarella pizza is because Al Capone got greedy and he was like, no, I need to get into the milk racket.
That is, you know what? I'll never, when I eat pizza, I'll just say, thank you, Al.
Thank you, Al Capone.
I won't pray. I'll pray to Al. Thank you for this
Al
pizza.
Capone, yeah. Crazy, right?
That's insane. Because I knew that he was like, it sounds like it's made up, like a sitcom or something.
It does.
It should be a movie.
It should be.
Rudy Giuliani should just play himself.
I mean, yes, I think this could be like an American crime story where like Rudy Giuliani comes back. Yeah, it could be a whole...
And it's going to be really tacky and cheesy.
Oh, it'll be a Ryan Murphy show for sure. Where he's just like, I'm the boss of mozzarella in Wisconsin. And there's like a crazy camera panning to him, right?
I would watch that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah. Rudy Giuliani is somehow responsible for this, which is crazy to me because, how the tides have turned and he's gone in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You mess with, well, no, I don't know. I had no moral to that story.
Yes, there is no moral to the story. It's insane. That's the whole point. But cheese, the moral of the story is that cheese is great and it's delicious.
And Wisconsin cheese is the best.
Wisconsin low moisture whole milk mozzarella gets you that tangy, stretchy, delicious cheese if you're trying to get that New York style. There's all these other components to it, which I am sure I will bring up pizza many more times throughout the rest of this podcast.
I don't doubt it.